You know him as a Browns analyst. You know him as an all-around swell dude, occasional part-time professional wrestler. Although I'm sure he's all the way in, even when he's part-time. The great Nathan Zegura joins us now. What's up, buddy?
Not too much, guys. How you doing?
Doing living the dream here, getting ready for football, and it's interesting, man. Like it's going to be such an interesting season. But whether I think they're going to be great or not, I'm still all the way in and kind of super excited to see where this thing goes.
Yeah, it's going to be a very newsy training camp. I think obviously whenever you have a quarterback competition, it's going to be newsy, and we'll see how ultimately that plays out for the Cleveland Browns. It's a very tough start to this season, and it's an interesting one because you still have so many really good pieces in place. I think the defensive front seven is going to be excellent. I like our cornerback room. I know the Browns are high on Ronnie Hickman, so defensively, I think this could be, an elite defense once again. And then offensively, you've got some real stars. We got some question marks. Obviously, the biggest at quarterback, who that's going to be. But it's going to be, I think, kind of a fascinating season in terms of, you're trying to get information about your young quarterbacks. At the same time, obviously, you're trying to win games, and you've got a lot of talent to do so. It's going to be, I think it's going to be very interesting. It's going to be an interesting training camp. It's going to be kind of, as I said, as newsy and as scrutinized the training camp as we've had in a long time.
Nathan, one of the things that's been talked about, I kind of remember you talking about this, is they did this in mini camps where they ran a little bit more of a robust practice than usual, trying to get all the quarterbacks the touches they need. Do you think that's it? Should we expect larger practices to carry over, not just to start camp, but throughout camp?
Yeah, I think so. I think you look at the Browns, and I think, Kevin Stefanski will be the first to tell you a lot of the things that they did last year in terms of how they used the time. Obviously, there wasn't the quarterback competition, number one, but number two, was with a focus on player health. And then they had one of the most oft-injured seasons in the NFL. So I think that it's difficult to have success in any regard as it relates to injury. So he said, you know what? I think we're going to have longer practices. I think we're going to have more physical practices. I think you are going to see a different kind of training camp from the Cleveland Browns, not just because of the quarterback situation, but also because, you've got to come out ready to play AFC North football, Bengals, Ravens right out of the gate, and then the NFC North, Packers, Lions, Vikings, and then Steelers. I mean, your first 6 games are against teams that all won 10 or more games a year ago, and so you've got to be ready to go immediately. And so I think we're going to see a ratchet up intensity. You've got to bring it. In the AFC North, it's a physical brand of football, and the Browns, I think, are going to try to do that. Now, of course, that comes with some injury risk, but as I pointed out before, when they were trying to really have an eye towards minimizing those things, they were bitten by the injury bug anyway. So I think they're going to try to get this team hardened, get this team calloused, get this team ready, and then, as you pointed out, get as many reps in as possible so that you can really evaluate these quarterbacks. And when you're ready to make a starter, have a very large amount of information that tells you, yeah, this is the direction we're going.
Nathan, there's a report over the weekend from Judy Bautista, and she said that they want somebody, the Browns, that is, to be able to run the offense, minimize mistakes, make good decisions. When you hear that, do you think to yourself that maybe the Browns are trying to swerve away from, what they did last year where they led the league in interceptions and are really going to focus on someone that can,
of course,
really focus on somebody, though, that isn't, I'm not going to call him a game manager, but, minimize the mistakes and not turn the ball over?
No, that's how you win in the NFL, is not giving the football away and being, positive in the plus minus and the takeaways. And the Browns have not done that well enough, and they've shot themselves in the foot quite a bit. So, of course, that's going to be critically important. And I think you look at a guy like Kenny Pickett, who's taking care of the football for his career, and then you look at both Dylan Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders, both in college, did a great job taking care of the football. So, yeah, that is critically important. When you're running, kind of this style of offense, the marriage of the run and pass, I think you're going to get back to a lot more 12 personnel. I think you're going to have a lot more run game and play action and the things that are what I would call Kevin Stefanski staples, or, you think of Shanahan, Kubiak style offenses and all their variations, whether it be with McVay, whether it be with LaFleur in Green Bay, whether it be with Kyle, obviously, in San Francisco, Kevin O'Connell in Minnesota. You want a quarterback who's going to take care of the football because the offensive scheme is so good that it is going to provide opportunities for you to move the chains and also to hit shot plays. That's just the way that these offenses are built. So if you have somebody who's able to take care of the ball, make the plays when they present themselves, you're going to be in a much better spot. And then we talked about how good the Browns defense is. So, yeah, I think that that's exactly what anybody wants at the quarterback position. Maybe some systems you're a little bit more okay with more of a gunslinger mentality and you take some of the good with the bad. But I think when you're running what the Cleveland Browns are running and when you've got the defense the Browns have, their path to winning games is going to be to play mistake-free football. The Browns' record under Kevin Stefanski when they do not turn the football over is excellent. I think it's more than 5 wins for every loss throughout his entire time here. So that's a huge key to this operation. It's a huge key to this offense. It's going to be key to success this season. So, yeah, guys that take care of the football and that can operate this offense efficiently, that's going to be the key. Processing, quarterback position is all about a couple of things, right? It's about processing information pre and post snap and then delivering the football on time and accurately. If you can do those things and take care of the football, you can be a Pro Bowler and you can lead a team to the playoffs.
Nathan, I think it's the O-line that's the linchpin of this offense, them being healthy and being able to bounce back to the scheme that I think they had the most success with. But what do you think is the linchpin that can determine whether this offense can bounce back to whether it's 2023 or 2020, whatever the Browns are trying to get back to when they were their most successful?
At the end of the day, it's quarterback play. That's answers 1 through 100 are all quarterback play. Taking that out of the equation, having a good, sound offensive line is very, very helpful. I think one of the more underrated things that have happened this offseason is the Browns bringing in offensive line coach Mike Bloomgren. He sees the game, the run game, a lot like Kevin Stefanski, a lot like Bill Callahan, and I think they're speaking the same language and preaching from the same hymn. So I know our offensive linemen are excited about that. I think that is very important. When you have a great ground game and your line's working that way with the schemes that we're able to run, not to say that who is carrying the football is not important, because certainly we've seen how good you are with, Nick Chubb in his heyday. But, Jerome Ford averaged over 5 yards a carry last year, and he had a lot of explosive runs. Dylan Sampson's the SEC Offensive Player of the Year. I don't think a lot of people even know that. He is the reigning SEC Offensive Player of the Year, the running back out of Tennessee they got in the 4th round. Of course, there's Quinshon Judkins, and whenever these off-field issues have been adjudicated and resolved, we'll find out his availability, if at all, for the Cleveland Browns. But if you have that line and you're able to get the run game going, hit some chunks in the run game, keep the quarterback upright, and allow for the explosives in the pass game, yeah, that's very, very important. And I think when you look at when Stefanski's offenses have been really humming, the line has played well. It's been a big reason for the quarterback playing well and obviously for the ground game playing well.
What do you expect out of the tight ends and how they're going to manage not only having just 2 of them, but really the idea that as much as I want Njoku to have a great year, and I expect him to, Harold Fannin was just explosive his final year in college.
I think, and maybe I'm talking myself into this, but I think I kind of view Harold Fannin as helping out, obviously, in the tight end room, but also helping out in the receiving room. I think you're going to see the Browns in a lot of 12 personnel, and I think there are many situations where Harold Fannin, he can be a big slot receiver for you. You can line him up out wide and get some tells from coverage that way. I think he's going to play a big role and be a big kind of chess piece for this offense and for Kevin Stefanski. I think David Njoku is definitely going to have a great season. He's, a Pro Bowl level tight end, one of the best complete tight ends in terms of his abilities as a receiver and as a blocker. I don't think Fannin's going to necessarily cut into his production, but I think Fannin is going to be in some ways, and I talked about this on Browns Daily today, that, one of the big questions is, okay, who's the number 2 receiver? Who's the number 3 receiver? And, if Tillman can stay healthy, he certainly showed promise last year. That 3-game stretch, he was elite, top 5 in the NFL in basically every category. Deontay Johnson's a former Pro Bowler. Maybe some of the young guys at Jamari Thrash step up. But I think Harold Fannin's actually going to kind of count in both of those rooms for the Cleveland Browns. And I like him. I know the coaches like him. They like everything they've seen. He just knows how to get open. He catches the ball. It's a unique look to it, but it is a productive look. And Harold Fannin, I think, is going to be a big part of what the Browns do this year.
Nathan Zegura, Browns analyst on the fan hotline here. Nathan, it's weird to say because he was a Michigan guy. I thought Mason Graham was amazing at Michigan. And I'm so excited to see, how quickly he can transition to the NFL. But when we talk about that transition, obviously it's already a big enough jump going from college to pros. Now, if you add, he's going from more of a space-eating role, less attacking at Michigan, to just pure attack in the wide 9. Do you think that speeds up his jump to the NFL, or do you think it might prolong kind of that little transition period all rookies have?
No, I think it certainly helps him because he doesn't have to think about a lot other than getting up the field and being disruptive. And Mason Graham, listen, to me, when you draft a defensive tackle 5th overall, you're saying this guy's going to be able to rush the passer. And I know the stats don't jump out big for Michigan, but as you correctly pointed out, that's not really what he was asked to do there. He will be asked to do that. And I think one of the big keys to this defense being absolutely dominant at the end, obviously, it's the continued progress of Isaiah McGuire, who I thought played very well last year. Alex Wright, we've seen play well. You bring in a former first-rounder in Joe Tryon-Shoyinka. But I really think it's the young guys in the middle with the combination of the veteran Shelby Harrison, and you bring in Malik Collins, a professional pass rusher in his own right. But Mike Hall and Mason Graham, Mike Hall is a first-round talent. We all know why he went in the 2nd round. Mason Graham is a top 5 talent. Those guys, if they can be disruptive and they can be sack getters and they can collapse pockets with Miles coming around the outside, I mean, this defensive front could be one of the very best in football. And I think that's what you're going to need. And that's certainly what they're looking for out of this group when you think about the investment. And it's a sizable investment that has been made in that room.
ESPN today highlighted it. They went through all the teams and where they all rank and everything like that. And for the Browns, for a non-starter to know, they highlighted Diabate. And they gave credit to the idea that Jerome Baker is probably ahead of him right now. But Diabate, how close is he to being a real contributor? Because I thought he was really good in a lot of areas last year.
Yeah, and he's versatile. He can play Mike. He can play Sam for you. I think they see Jerome Baker as much more of a will linebacker, so I don't know that they would be directly in competition. I think that linebacker room, though, is very interesting, obviously without JOK. You draft Schlesinger 33rd, and they think he's probably the Mike of the future, but can be, I think, a will linebacker. He's very good in coverage. And then, I think it's Diabate and Devin Bush on the other side, kind of in that Sam role that are going to really compete. I actually think our linebacker room is pretty good, and it's going to be tough come cut down day. You mentioned right now, we talked about Schlesinger, Jordan Hicks, Bush, Diabate. You mentioned Jerome Baker as well. There's Winston Reed, who they really like, Buki Watson, who they drafted a year ago. That's 7 guys right there. So that's going to be an interesting competition, I think, as we kind of watch it unfold. But I think the key in that room is, how quickly can Schlesinger become an impact player? And when you draft somebody at 33rd, you're certainly hoping the answer to that is very quickly. And that's something we'll keep our eye on.
Nathan, I got to get your opinion on this. What do you think the best move the Browns made this offseason was?
I really think that the best move they made this offseason was Mike Bloomgren as the offensive line coach. I think that was a change that was very much needed. It was just not where it needed to be following the departure of Bill Callahan. And so I think that is kind of an under-the-radar one. And Tommy Rees, from a coaching standpoint, going up and becoming the offensive coordinator, I think those were 2 huge moves that are going to have very positive effects on the Browns this year and into the future. And then I think as much as we don't know the outcome yet from a process standpoint and from an opportunity standpoint, going from 2 to 5, picking up an extra 2nd-round pick, which we'll see how that ultimately plays out, and picking up an extra 1st-round pick was just a really good decision, given how many needs this football team had. So I like that move a lot as well. I think that was a very, very good move. And then you kind of look at the overall draft class. I see exactly what they did. I like it, and you hope that you have an answer in quarterback there. Shador in the 5th round is one of my favorite moves of the offseason. It's basically a complete lottery ticket. I think he's a really, really good player. They love Dylan Gabriel as well. But getting Judkins and Sampson, getting Fannin, and then getting, a linebacker, which you needed in Schlesinger, who they were really high on, and Mason Graham was really their target all along in the 1st round. It looks good. Now it's got to come together. It's got to result in wins, and it's got to result in really, as this season goes, the arrow has to point more and more up. You know what I mean? I think that you need, for this season to really be a success, you got to win games. And at the end of the year, you've got to feel really good about the direction of this football team and where it is going into the following offseason.
You mentioned Shador as we get closer and closer to being able to see him ourselves out in the practice fields and everything. What will be some check marks for you that'll tell you that he's growing in a way that maybe the Browns would be interested in?
I think what you see kind of the reps, right? What reps does he get, and how does he do when he handles that? I think with Shador Sanders, anybody who's seen him throw the football knows that he is incredibly gifted. He's able to throw the football. He has an almost a unique ability to throw the football precisely where he wants to throw it. He's incredibly accurate at all levels of the field, and that helps. I think that mastering everything from even just calling the play in the huddle to pre-snap, those operations, the motions, the checks. I think people would be blown away by how long the names of some of these plays are, what every little detail means, the things you have to do pre-snap, the checks you have to make based on what you see from the defense, all of those things. I think it's that pre and post-snap. Post-snap, he's pretty good because he had to do it in college. Pre-snap, he's being asked to do different things. So mastering that operation, and that's what will earn him more opportunities. Everybody in the building knows the guy can throw the football at an elite level. So it's going to be the other things that are going to tell you things that we don't necessarily see that are happening on whiteboards, that are happening in meeting rooms, that are happening in walkthroughs. Those are the things that are going to enable him to get more reps. And then hopefully, you hope he capitalizes on those opportunities when he gets them.
Nathan, weird question to end the interview, but that's really the only kind I do here. Have you seen the Eagles Super Bowl rings?
Yeah, made by Jason of Beverly Hills with the wings that come out.
Yeah, the wings are the only thing tripping me up. Every time I see it, I'm like, somebody's going to get hurt. You're like poke your eye out with that thing. I can't be the only one thinking about the liability here, am I?
I hadn't thought of it, to be honest, but I could see, you mentioned in a wrestling situation, I could see those being like the new brass knucks. Get them with a wing to the eye, and now you're off to the races.
Hot take. I think we've gone too far. I think we've gone. It's basically like a trophy on your finger. You need to get back to a spot where you could actually wear the rings.
That's fair.
I agree with that. I also think that given where we're going with these things and the value in them, these things are to be worn in very, very special circumstances only anyway. So I think given that it's not an everyday ring, so you're bringing it out, it's supposed to be a centerpiece and a talking point, and it really is like a trophy that you're wearing on your finger. So that part I'm not as concerned with. Because I just don't think it's ever going to be something that you're going to wear all the time.
Nathan, great stuff, buddy. Glad to have you back. Glad to see the family's doing great and the kiddo and your wife.
Thank you.
Glad to see everything's going great, man. I can't wait for this football season.
Thanks, guys. Me neither. Here we go. It's coming.
Here it is.